Today's guest is Rick Ornelas, a nationally recognized executive business strategist, two-time best-selling author, and founder of 3 successful companies here in Montgomery County, Texas. With over 30 years of experience growing startups to Fortune 100s, Rick helps leaders and entrepreneurs unlock thriving businesses through behavioral analytics. He's a leader's leader, a family man, and someone who lives what he teaches. Let's level up with Rick. Rick, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Sean, for that great introduction. It's an honor to be here, and I'm excited about our conversation because I know it's going to be amazing.
It's going to be great, man. I know we've gotten to talk to each other the last couple months and being in the same group and doing some things behind the scenes. So really excited about the episode today. Also, best-selling author. I did not know this about you.
Oh, well, yeah, I wrote, that's kind of a long story, but I wrote a book in 2020 during the pandemic, 12 Hours of Heaven, Lessons for a Better World. And it went to Amazon, a bestseller.
Awesome.
And then the second one is I was in a compilation book last year that was an international bestseller, an international Amazon bestseller. Cool. With a lot of, kind of change makers from around the world.
That's incredible. I can't wait to dive into that. We'll dive into that here in a little bit. But for our listeners and audience and viewers that don't know Rick, I want to take the next 1 minute. In our mastermind group, we do a 1 minute intro. And no business owner, nobody likes this, right? The 1 minute intro. But I want you to take the next minute and tell us who you are and what you do and why you do what you do.
All right. Who I am. I identify first and foremost as a man of faith. And so my faith and my family are the reason for everything that I do in life. So that's who I am, first and foremost. Second, I would just call myself an entrepreneur, someone that has been down the road of corporate and startups and lots of different businesses and learned through many bumps and bruises, and failures, all the lessons that have made me who I am. And why I do what I do is it all boils down. So it can be for iSpark Change to elevate social impact and spread positive change, or for Revive to optimize health naturally through science and technology, or my behavioral analytics to help leaders to leverage their most valuable asset, their people, to grow their business. I can sum that all up in saying that why I do is to love, give, and serve others, is to really, I feel that's why God put us on this earth, is to, serve others and share our gifts with the world, that, the things that He's bestowed upon us to share in the service of others. So that's why I do all of those things.
Beautifully said, man. And I know one of the things that you've done a lot, you wear a lot of hats. You're into fitness and you have a family. And like you said, you're an entrepreneur. So you have these businesses, and I cannot wait to how you balance it all, and just for selfish reasons, because we all know that can be a challenge. But my first question here is for you. You've worked with startups in Fortune 100s. When I saw that, I was like, wow, that's incredible. What some are core strategies have you seen work at every level of business that you've worked with in these Fortune 100 companies?
Yeah, I'd say and sometimes it was a lesson that I learned, like when I worked for some huge mega corporations back when I started in healthcare primarily. What I saw, Sean, was that they were very focused on training and development and focused on their people. And I was young and I didn't really know much about that. And I was just kind of getting into the field of personal development and reading some things. And my bosses would send me to these meetings and, stuff like that. But what I realized is that they're the foundation. People are the foundation of any business. And if you don't have the people right, if you don't take care of your people, then you can forget about having success.
Yes.
So I was very blessed to go through tons of training. I mean, I remember I was with Allergan and they invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into my development, which, I'm very grateful for to this day. Yeah. And then in the startup world, I learned the lesson, but the hard way. I learned that if you don't treat people the right way, if you become focused on growth and money and success, then it's going to affect your people in a negative way. And, the business will suffer.
Yes.
And then nowadays in the hundreds or thousands of people I've worked with to this day in consulting, and I've learned that I put all those together to really hone in on how can you treat people right? How can you really have alignment of their goals with your goals to drive success?
I love that, man. And so with behavioral analytics, one of the things that me and you had actually just sat down a week ago, and it was like you were telling me exactly what I already knew about myself, but it was interesting hearing about it and reflecting back about the behavioral analytics of what that looked like from doing that survey. So it was very insightful. And with that insight, as far as an entrepreneur, because I consider myself an entrepreneur as well, what behavioral analytics insights does every entrepreneur need to understand to level up and live their best life, to get to that next level?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. And I would say for any leader, no matter, if you're in a solopreneur or you're running a mega corporation, it begins with self-awareness. So it begins with self-awareness of understanding who you are, what your strengths are, what your limitations are, what are the blind spots that you have, just having a full, 360-degree awareness of who you are. Yeah. And I'll speak from experience that it wasn't, I had to develop that over time. When I was young, you're just kind of, I was arrogant and cocky and, very competitive and things like sports. And I didn't have that awareness that developed as I matured and, learned things and read hundreds of books and all sorts of things that you become more aware. So I'd say it starts with the self-awareness. And then from that, you have to do something about it. So, it's like the old saying, well, knowledge is power. No, it's knowledge without action or activity, is useless.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
So it's having that awareness and then saying, okay, now what am I going to do with what I know? How am I going to use it to apply it to the goals that I have, to apply it to serving and supporting my people, to really helping others level up? Because in the end, it's what I had to find out is it's not about you. It's about, meaning you, me, whomever. It's not about yourself. It's about serving others. And when you really focus on that, then that's when the leveling up takes off.
I agree with you. And you make a good point. The first thing that came to my mind is somebody listening to this, they may be in their teens or 20s or 30s. Think about the old version of Rick that's in his 20s. What would that Rick need to hear right now to understand or let it land with what you're saying about self-awareness versus the mentality of, no, man, I'll figure it out. I'll DIY it. I don't need to be self-aware. I just need to do the things that's going to drive income and sales and me and the things that I want, my house, the cars. What would you tell that old version of Rick?
Yeah, I'd tell him exactly what you just said. Sean, I would tell him that it's not about you. I would say that, quit being so selfish, stop focusing on yourself, quit using the excuse of your family or success or, financial rewards as an excuse for, you driving your own success when it's, you're not really doing it to serve others. You're doing it really for yourself. So I would really tell him, because, did I have some self-awareness? Did I know, for example, that I was being cocky on the basketball court? Sure. But did I do anything about it? No. So it would be, really taking action on that self-awareness and then utilizing what I knew to help others.
Can you be successful and make a lot of money? Because business owners, they get into it for all kind of different reasons, and we all have our different whys. And from my experience working with business owners myself in the last few years, they get into it because I want to make a lot of money. I even hear 30 and 40 and 50-year-olds, I want to make a lot of money. Hey, they're transparent behind it, but we know what that's going to lead to. It's going to lead to unfulfillment because there's always going to be somebody making more, and there's always a place where you can make more. So it's just that cog in the wheel. It's just a continuous rat race, and it doesn't bring that fulfillment. And I'm curious with where I was going with this is that, do you think that with this mindset do you have to go through the pain point of, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, kind of like what me and you have been through? Or if you're listening to a podcast like this, or you do the work, the deep work, and have self-awareness, and you can avoid going through that pain point because you're learning from somebody else's mistakes and you're coachable, you're open-minded, and then you're now not self-serving, but you're also now you're impacting and you're serving other people around you. And what's the byproduct of that? The byproduct of that is you make a lot of money because you're helping other people reach more goals. See, I think we all have it backwards in our teens and 20s and 30s. And I don't understand why. Maybe you can help shed some light on that. But do you think we have to go through that pain point, or do you think we can be mentored and coached beforehand to serve and impact more people, and then the byproduct of that be more money? What are your thoughts on that?
I would say it's an excellent question, Sean. And I would say a younger me would say you have to go through that. You got to get the road rash and the battle scars and go through the pain yourself before you're like, okay, dummy, you need to stop, being so stupid.
Yeah.
And what I've realized in the past, I'd say 6-7 years, is that some of the younger generations, I'm a Gen X, you're probably a millennial, I guess. Yeah, millennial.
Yeah.
That, like Gen Z, and what I've seen in my daughters and other people I've worked with is that they really think purpose first. They really think about, hey, let's drive some purpose. And there was some research a few years ago where they looked at Gen Z, and this was right before the pandemic, where they showed that, about 75% of them felt that they were going to impact the world, change the world in a positive way.
Wow.
You go back to my parents, they were just trying to survive, right? Yes. They're just trying to survive and put food on the table and everything. And my parents always instilled, hard work and education and, family and faith. And so I'd say it's a mixture of both in today's world.
Yeah. I'd
say that it's a combination of, yes, there's more awareness because of everything, everything, information is so prolific that you have access in 2 seconds to anything you want to know. And so a young individual, they can listen to the podcast, they can watch the YouTube, they can read the book, they can see someone's content and be inspired and say, hey, I need to do something about it. I think it's going to be a small percentage that's enough. I think the bigger percentage, and I've seen it, in, my daughters and my nephews and everything, I think a bigger percentage are going to be the ones that they have to learn those lessons on their own.
Yeah.
And then hopefully it's a shorter runway. It's a quicker turnaround to saying, okay, I didn't have to learn that lesson 10 times like I did. They can learn it 2 or 3 and be like, okay, now I'm going to move on. And now I'm going to start serving others. So I think it's improving, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think, in that regard, and I think that we will see more people that can learn from others' journeys to help themselves.
I like that. I like that attitude, and I like that optimism behind that. And I agree with you. It's when I think about my parents' generation, it's very similar. It's like, we do things our own, we roll up our sleeves and we work hard, we grit. And I get a lot of those traits from my family and my friends, but it was always, money and house, and we've got to fend for ourselves and, survive. And when I reflect on that and become more self-aware, I'm like, well, I can still do that by also serving and impacting others, because this is what ultimately is going to lead to fulfillment. And so that's what I love talking about and love instilling in the younger generation. And so I think we resonate with that on similar pages. In your experience, what do you feel separates businesses that plateau? Because I know you work with a lot of businesses over the years, and you've seen them stagnate, you've seen them contract, you've seen them plateau, from those that scale rapidly.
Yeah. It's one thing. It starts with one thing and then it trickles down from there. The one thing I have seen amongst anything else that will stagnate a business is the leader, the founder, the owner's inability to give up control.
Wow.
Period.
Interesting. Yeah.
Full stop. Because they are usually their own self-limiting factor.
Yeah.
So as an example, someone starts a business, whatever it is, because they're good at whatever they do. Marketing. They start a marketing business because they're good at marketing, right? And then they become an expert in marketing. And then they realize, wow, I'm getting a lot of clients. I can't really do this on my own. I need to hire some people. And then they hire some people, and then they're frustrated because those people aren't as good as they are at marketing. So they never quite give up control. And they they'll have them do little things here and there. And I've been in these shoes, by the way.
Yes.
And they'll never quite give up control. And then they'll be doing $1 million, and they're like, why can't I go beyond? I hustled and made it to 1 million. It took me 5 years or, 8 years, and I made it to $1 million in my business. And, it's a small percentage of businesses that get there. But why can't I grow? Because you won't give up control and get out of your own way and realize that you need others. You need to support others, like we've been talking about, and help them grow. And then that's going to help you grow.
Why do you think business owners don't like to give up control?
Because it's their baby, because it's what they created. And because it's in that they get to the point where they're like, well, nobody's going to take care of my baby better than I am. Yeah. It goes back to what I just said, right? I'm the best at doing X, Y, Z.
Right.
And so how can I give up control? And I think Jim Rohn said it best. And if you know who Jim Rohn is, old school personal development guy who a lot of, younger people have spawned off of him.
Yep.
Jim Rohn said, I think it was Jim Rohn who said this, that when you have someone that can do something to the level at 70% of what you can, you give it to them.
Yes.
And that's a hard pill to swallow, because you're like, well, I could do it at 100. So why would I want to lose 30% giving it to them?
Yes.
But if you have 5 people that can do something at 70% or you at 100, how much are you getting accomplished? Right. And that's where, and then you continue to grow them, and maybe they get to 85 or 90. Maybe they never get to where you are, but they're pretty darn good. And I think that's the main reason. Again, I've been in that situation.
Yeah. That's brilliant advice. And I agree with you. I've been in that situation as well. And when I started, because I was a control freak, especially everything that you just said, I feel like you were speaking to me. And I know there's a lot of business owners out there that don't want to relinquish control. And Jim Rohn, Dan Martell, a lot of these guys say that 70% done is 100% awesome. I don't have to do it anymore. So I've removed myself as the bottleneck in doing that task responsibility. And it just frees up your time to go do the things that you not only enjoy doing, but also want to do that's going to move that needle in that 80-20 rule. And it's from my experience. I'm curious, Rick, what's one mistake leaders make when trying to build high-performing teams? So we've been talking about teams, we've been talking about leadership, we've been talking about scaling. But what would you say one mistake leaders make when trying to build high-performing teams, and how do you coach them through that?
Yeah, that's another easy answer. Unfortunately, is and when I say unfortunately, is because I had to learn this through the hard way, right? Through failure.
Yes.
So it's hiring fast and firing slow. And it should be the other way, right? It should be you hire slow and you fire fast. But what happens inevitably is people have a need, right? Oh, I'm topped out in, logistics or operations. I need someone to help me. And so they're buried underwater. And so the first person that comes through the door that has a decent resume and that they're like, oh, I like this person. That'd be like a subset of that of hiring too fast, is hiring people that you like. Because it's not about someone that you like. It's about who's going to be the best person for the job, right? For the role. So they'll hire someone, and then that person will, they'll go, okay, well, I just got to train them, and then they're going to be great, right? And they're floundering, and it's taking more of your time than if you had just done it yourself. And so you're like, well, shoot, why? And then they're like, well, no, I'm just going to keep putting effort into them because I know I can get them there. And then 6 months go by, and 9 months go by, and 14 months go by. And then you finally or 3 years, and then you finally get fed up and you fire them. And what did that cost your business in that time period? What was the dollar value? And I do this every day when I work with clients. What is the loss, the opportunity cost, the dollar value associated with making that decision? And research, shows it's astronomically higher than most people think.
Yes.
It's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And that's a tough pill to swallow. So, I would say flip that. Hire slow and fire fast, and you'll be much better off.
Yeah, I flipped the script when I made that mistake when I was my first 3 years. I hired really fast. I was basically, people knew what I was doing. I was starting an insurance agency, and people were interested in my energy. And I thought I was a good leader at the time, but I was a horrible leader. And so these people came in, and I had a high turnover, Rick. I mean, it was every 6 to 12 months, and it was just argument, challenges, confrontation. It was just, there was so much anxiety, stress that came with it. And I reflected back, I was like, after 5 years, I was like, man, I cannot sustain this anymore. And it's exactly with what you just said. I was hiring so fast and scaling so fast. I had to take a step back to take 2 steps forward. And that's when I started reflecting, oh, what do other successful businesses doing that I'm not doing with hiring people, high performing teams that are keeping and retaining the right candidates, the right people in the right seats. And it was just that. It was hire slow, fire fast. And so then I came up with a hiring process talking about our values and 10 pre-interview questions. And so and we still use it to this day. And so now we hire slow, we have the right candidates, and now our retention is, near 100% with people that come on board. Yeah. Do you have any tips or advice for new business owners listening to this that are in business, that 1, 2, 3 year mark, that are scaling 5, 10, 15, 20 employees on a hiring process? Is there any tips or suggestions there?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say first and foremost is to have a process, because what I've seen is that most people, as you learned, Sean, most people have no process. Yeah. They just, I'm going to interview some people. I'm going to put something on Indeed, or, my friend knows somebody that'll be good that I should hire. Oh, I'm going to hire them. And they just kind of wing it, right? And you can't wing it in business. It's not sustainable. So right. Have a process like you. Hey, these are 10 questions we ask everybody, something that's replicatable, something that's systematized. The reason franchises are successful is because they have systems and processes that they can replicate over and over and over and over and over again. Yes. So create some kind of process. Now, in that, my area of expertise is in behavioral analytics. So is really understanding the people that you have some data, have some analytics to support your decision. So it's not just, they got a good resume and, we like them. It's got to be more than that, or at least the people that have success, the businesses that have success and grow, it is a lot more defined than that. And when you add the data and the analytical component to it, then you really have what I call, the 3 legs of a stool, or a 3-legged table, where you have their background, their experience, their resume, where they've come from, their past. You have the present, which is how they fit in with the team, how they fit into the role that you have for them. And then the future, which is the analytics. Do the analytics show that they are going to be a round peg in a round hole, or a square peg in a square hole? Right. And so when you put all of those 3 together, you have that balanced stool, and that's where it works really well in hiring.
Right. Finding the right. Do you, on the behavioral analytics, do you recommend business owners having that consultation with new potential candidates before joining their business, or after they join their business with the survey and the behavioral analytics that you go over with your clients?
Oh, absolutely. Before. I mean, my clients survey everybody. Our biggest client out of the Dallas regional office here locally surveyed 80,000 people last year. And a lot of those were potential hires. Wow. Because, they're hiring for multiple positions across the corporation. So absolutely before, because if you've hired them, it's too late, right? If you've hired the square peg for the round hole, and then you're like, oh shoot, we messed up. Yeah. Then it's an uphill battle. Then, why even move forward? And, I had a client that did that recently. We were in the early stages of working together. And so they were still learning the process. I get it. They were still learning the process. They hadn't been to their training yet and everything. So it was still very, very early on. And I said, look, do not hire anyone without talking to me and surveying them. And because they're stuck in their old ways, they hired someone. And then sure enough, they wanted the square peg and this person was the round peg. And they're like, why do we keep hiring the wrong person? And I was like, because you're not implementing what you're starting to, the tools you have, at your disposal. And so they had to learn that mistake the hard way. And that person this is literally months ago, that person is still on a performance improvement plan. They're trying to make it work because they've invested a lot of money in him for the past, 4 or 5 months. And so they're trying to make it work. And it's just like the example I gave you. It's costing them a lot of money. It's taking a lot of stress, anxiety, like you had your experience. And so you better find out beforehand.
That is fascinating to me. When I hear you say that, because I know a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, they don't have the system. They don't have the system or process. Like you said, that's step 1, have a system or process and be aware of that. And then, and it's not one size fits all, but their success leaves clues. And so I agree with you on getting these behavioral analytics. But for somebody that doesn't understand, what is behavioral analytics, if you don't mind kind of elaborating on that, and then how is that different from DISC, Myers-Briggs, and some of these other assessments and personality types that have been used over time?
Yeah, good question. So all of those, just to be clear, all of those are a type of behavioral analytics. They're a type of understanding who someone is, right? The methodology that I use, Culture Index, is the most accurate and most statistically valid measurement of human beings.
Yeah.
So what I do is specifically psychometrics, which is non-clinical psychology. So it's the convergence of two disciplines, math and psychology. And 50 plus years ago, those two disciplines merged and had a baby, and psychometrics was born. And that's what, it's the most accurate way to measure a human being, short of, going down to A&M and going to the psychology department and having them run, 8 hours of tests on you.
Yeah.
So it's very simple. It's a survey-based methodology. It takes someone, maybe 5-10 minutes to complete. And the big difference between those older methodologies is, one, the accuracy, and then two is applying it. So anyone can go online and take some assessment or some test, or, we used to joke, like I would joke with my wife, back in the magazine days that, there'd be like in Cosmo or something, and they'd take these tests and be like, oh, I'm this kind of lover or whatever, right? Or probably the same in men's magazines. But so what, right? So what? What I do is different, is it's taking what you learn and then applying it to the goals, whatever they are, of the business, of the organization, and applying the goals and the people into leveraging them to achieve whatever you want to achieve.
Yeah. I resonate.
It goes back to one last thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It goes back to what I said earlier. Knowledge without application is useless.
That's right.
Right. So just because you knew who someone was, or you took a test or whatever, well, if you don't do anything with it, then what's the point? So that's where you have to do something with what you know.
One of the things that when I sat down with you and we had an awesome 90-minute consultation, one of the things that you had shed the light on in perspective that for me as a business owner, being in business for 10 years now, is, and I've had to really learn this the hard way, is having a team of 10 people. And so with finding the right people in the right roles, they can have the core values, they can have understand the mission and the vision, but do they have the capacity? Is this leading to fulfillment? Is this the role that they should be in? And you were explaining to me, which I thought was fascinating, and how you were sharing that with me on your perspective with other business owners and then also their employees. They were sitting here doing the things that they thought they were needing to be doing on a daily basis, year after year, but they were unfulfilled. They were not in the right seats. They were not doing the things that they should have been focused on a daily basis. So, which comes down to self-awareness, and then also being open to hearing what individuals like you on the behavioral analytics. And so I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, well, if that's going on with the leadership, because it's the law of the leadership, John Maxwell talks about this, there's a capacity there. So that's what's happening in the organization with these team members. So maybe if that's what the leader's going through, it's going on in the employees and the team members, where they may be, I think you would put it this way, you're like, they may be in a role where because the leader believes in them, they believe in it, but they don't have the capacity, or it's not leading to their fulfillment, or it's not leading to what they should be doing on a daily basis for their tasks and responsibilities. I thought that was just so fascinating, and so I made a mental note of that, of course. And then of course, now we're going to be setting that up and making sure that we have them take the surveys, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot for it, man. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. And one point on what you were just sharing, Sean, and thank you for sharing that, because it's an important thing for leaders to learn, is that, you've been a college athlete, and I've been an athlete all my life, and so there's probably a lot of people listening that can relate to this. Any coach, any leader, anyone in that kind of position of authority, you can't want it enough for someone else if they don't want it.
That's right.
And if they're not the right fit. So you can train them all they want and believe in them 1,000%. And if they're not the right fit, or their heart's not in it, or they're not fulfilled, or they're not aligned, or something is off, it's only it will never get to its full capacity, right? It would only go so far,
Yeah.
and you may be able to push, like I think I use the running analogy. I know you like to run, right? You may run a 7-minute mile and someone else runs a 9-minute mile, and you may be able to push them for a little while to run that 7, but they're just not going to be able to sustain that. I mean, if you could run a 10K and you run it at 7 and they're like, yeah, they're going to poop out at 2 miles, and then they're going to go right back to that 8 or that 9. And so, you can't want it more than the person does or is capable of.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And then being intentional behind that too, for each of these team members, and making sure, like you said, if they're maxed out on their capacity, a lot of times they're maybe in their threshold, or there may be a percentage of them that wants to improve in that area. But at the end of the day, it has to, I feel like, align with that behavioral, because if I'm taking, I think I told you this in our meeting, if I'm taking that behavioral analytics survey 3 years ago, the graph that you had presented to me would have looked completely different. And so I think that insight to that with business owners that are listening to this for themselves starts with themselves, and then reflecting back on that, what do you need to work on? What do you need to improve moving forward, in making sure you're getting some guidance there on the things that you need to work forward. And then that trickles into your organization, that trickles into your company. And it's
absolutely. It always starts in the mirror, man. It always starts in the mirror.
100, I couldn't agree with you more, man. So transitioning, I really like talking leadership, and I know this all correlates and ties into it, but you've trained over 10,000 hours in leadership, which is expert, that kind of getting that expert level in human behavior. What's one principle you believe every leader must master? One principle.
One principle. Wow, that's an excellent question. And not to sound redundant, I would say it's awareness. And again, I said it starts with self-awareness for the leader. This is just overall awareness.
Right.
This is just overall awareness of who you are, who the people you're leading are. What area are you leading them in? Right? Awareness of the challenges of the market that you're in, or the environment that you're trying to lead them through. Right? It's having that awareness. And I would say a subset of that is, you said one, but this is really a subset. So I'm going to go with it. I'm taking, creative license to go with this. Yeah. Is being open to grow in that awareness, knowing that it's not going to be stagnant, that you have to constantly grow in that awareness in all the areas.
I love that, man. And I would just add a subcategory to that, having somebody hold you accountable, being open to accountability, and somebody challenging you.
Yes. Yeah. We all need that. Yeah. We all need mentors. We all need coaches. We all need guides, leaders to help show us the way, because again, you can go your own way, right? And go through the pain, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, go through the pain, and you can take the hard road, or you can say, hey, maybe this person knows a little bit. Maybe they've acquired some wisdom. Let me learn over here. And then let me take that shortcut and, have faster success. And, everybody's going to be better for it.
I had a couple strategy calls yesterday. One individual reached out to me on Instagram. He sent me a direct message. He's a plumber, owns a plumbing business, been in business for a little over 12 months, just him. And so he just basically said, I'm struggling with leads and I don't know what else to do. I'm about to throw in the towel. I'm fatigued. I'm tired. And I feel like I'm just a cog in the wheel, rat race, beating my head up against the wall. So I sent a message back. We jumped on a call, and immediately I just started asking him questions about his business and where he's at in it. And I had found out that a few things. One, he wasn't really putting himself out there as far as networking and building relationships and putting himself on Facebook and all these different social free platforms, and just stuff he wasn't aware of, like Google My Business.
Yep.
And so the second thing is that he said he's been wanting to reach out for the longest time, but he hasn't. And I said, and I'd asked him why, and he said because he felt like he was in isolation. He didn't want to. He thought it was weird. I think that was the language he used. He thought it was weird to reach out for help. And this gentleman, I believe, is in his 30s. And so I resonated so much with that, because 3 years ago, I would have thought the same thing. I would have, you know what? Nobody understands what I'm going through. I don't need to reach out. I don't have to reach out. I can figure this out on my own, because to a certain degree, that's how I was raised. And I know there's a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs out there that resonate with that. And it's relatable, because oh, I don't want to bother him, or I don't want to seem like I'm weak. To me, that's strength and courage and faith by reaching out, having consultations, getting guidance from a coach, hiring somebody. And I was expressing all this to him. I kid you not, Rick, within a matter of 15 minutes with listening to this man, this business owner that was having real life issues and struggles and challenges, and then giving him a few tactics. And now he's going to be plugged in. He's coming into the Level Up Live Mastermind group with other like-minded individuals. It was like a weight was lifted off his shoulders. It was like an elephant came off his shoulders. And so I guess my point here is, why wait, right? Take the action today and be coachable, kind of like what you're saying. Be self-aware enough to know that you don't have all the answers. We know this much. We know nothing. We know a little bit about a lot, but we know nothing when it comes to the grand scheme of things. And so I just think that's such an important note to, I don't know if you got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree completely. I agree completely, because as I said earlier in the show, I was like that person when I was younger. I was the person that had always said, oh, you tough it out, you do it on your own, you know, hard work, grit, hustle, you're going to figure it out. And guys like you and I, we're good at figuring stuff out. Yeah. So, you know, we go, okay, well, I figured it out over here, so I'm going to figure it out in this situation. And I had to learn the hard way multiple times over, I might add, that when you ask for help, when you find those coaches and those mentors and those groups that you can be a part of. Yeah. I mean, I've invested, someone I mentor actually asked me, and I did the calculation. This was maybe 2 years ago. I did the calculation on what I had spent in my personal development, and it was like $250,000 that I had spent in my personal development. And that was, you know, over a period of years. Yeah. And there's no way that I'd still be struggling along if I hadn't invested in myself and if I hadn't asked for help, you know, if you will, and looked for people that could, you know, help me in my journey.
Speed up that process.
Yeah.
It's so easy. Once you go through it, it becomes tangible because you've experienced it. But somebody listening to this, I'm listening to this 3 years ago. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'll figure it out on my own, you know? And so it's like you said earlier, it's like, you got to go through that pain cave.
Yeah, exactly.
So man, we'll wrap things up, but I wanted to get this question in on wearing multiple hats. So you're a strategist, you work with business owners, you're an author, founder. How do you stay aligned and avoid burnout with all this?
That's an excellent question. And I didn't have the answer for that a few years ago. And I had to, again, like everything, you know, I had to struggle and learn it the hard way. The answer for me is really living in that purpose of why I feel God put me on this planet. And that's to love, give, and serve others. And until I figured that out, and you know, it took me, you know, at first I would wear it as a bracelet. I had an engraved bracelet and I would wear it. So I would look at it all day and, you know, ingrain it into my head. And this is like seven years ago, it's just started ingraining into my head. And then a couple years ago when I was in Jerusalem, I actually got it tattooed on my wrist, just so it's, you know, there, it's a part of me. But I put everything through that lens. Is I spark change? Is it loving and giving and serving others? Is the business I'm building at Revive, is that to help others and serve them and, you know, love it? And so when I put everything through that lens, hey, coming on Sean's, you know, show to share some of my journey, is that going to do all those things? Yes. So I do a lot of different things, and it is tough to balance and tough to juggle. And there's, you know, other time management things and, you know, gratitude and all these other things that I do, but it all comes down to just being in alignment with that purpose, you know, that I think is from God.
I agree with you. I do something very similar, and beautifully well said, man. And that's a beautiful place to be. That's a healthy place to be, because what I'm hearing you say is the actions and the things that you say yes to and no to still going to come with its challenges, but also it's aligned with your values and your belief and your interest. So that's powerful, 100%. Man.
Yeah.
So 100%. Dude, we're out of time. Man, the last couple guests, I'm like, dude, we could just sit here and just talk, ask questions.
Talk for like 2 hours or 3 hours, probably.
I'm telling you, man, I had some notes and I didn't even get to drop into those. So,
well, that's the next step. We'll do that on
another
part
episode,
2.
Man. Chop it up. Yeah, I love
part 2, or you come on my show and then we'll have that conversation.
Totally down, man. Totally down. So final question, you've been nothing but valuable today, Rick, and I really appreciate you saying yes. Super grateful for you. I know our audiences and our viewers and our listeners are grateful. You've been nothing but invaluable, sharing your experiences, opening up, being vulnerable, and sharing that. How can we support you here at Level Up and Live?
Well, first off, it's been a pleasure and honor to be on your show, Sean. Fantastic conversation, great questions. In your short time of podcasting, you're a fantastic interviewer. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you.
I'll say a selfish one and an unselfish one, I guess. Okay.
Yep.
The unselfish one is to continue to support others like they're doing by being, part of the Level Up and Live community, right? Continue to support others, continue to look for help, continue to really work on improving yourself, looking in the mirror, because that in turn is going to help to serve others, right?
Mm-hmm.
And help others. So that's number one. And, just by listening to the show, right? They're doing that.
That's right.
And then number two is with I Spark Change, my organization to elevate social impact and spread positive change. I just literally inked a deal yesterday that we are building out the beta version of our app, which will be the world's first social impact driven social media platform. And so when that app comes out, I can share it, with your audience, and
absolutely,
people can be part of that beta testing world, and it's going to be, it's an app of shared purpose connections, change makers, people that want to make the world a better place and are doing some good work in the world like yourself. So just because that's fresh in my mind, I wouldn't normally say something self-serving, but it's for the greater good.
That's right.
And our goal is within 5 years of launching is to have 1 billion people on the platform, 1 billion members on the platform. So it's got to start somewhere.
That's right.
So, communities like this and people that want to make a difference, that'd be fantastic.
And we'll have the link in the show notes too to follow you. So I'm sure on your social medias, you'll be able to keep us posted on that, on when that comes out, so we can help you support on that, and you'll keep me connected as well.
Absolutely.
So awesome, man. Thanks again, Rick. So if you're listening to this episode lit a fire underneath you, I know it did for me today, hit that subscribe button, drop a review. The reason we asked to drop a review, because we don't do paid advertising. The review helps us serve and impact more people. So whether it's a 1-star, 5-star, please take the minute to go leave us a review and share this with a fellow leader or entrepreneur who's ready to take things to the next level. Big thanks to Rick for bringing the heat today. Make sure you go follow him, tap into his world. And whether it's leadership, behavioral analytics, or scaling your business, Rick is the guy to help you spark real change. Level up and live. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you very much.